And now, for our very last uh, entry into the 2019 Orchestration Challenge from Stefano. And once again, to reiterate, there is no gradation of quality or or any kind of those perceptions. In fact, I completely keep those things out of it. Right? Whatever any person's level of craft or professional career or any of that kind of stuff, polish, that is completely secondary. I just basically evaluate everything in the order that I get it, per level, of course, on the Patreon, on the for the Patreon entries. But it's still really really great to have a score with a lot of very lovely touches, imagination, some great craft, and still have some things to say, some advice to pass along, and just a really fitting end to our exploration into this work. And Stefano, I'm just going to give you a few preliminary comments here because I'll probably forget to mention it later on when I get into the thick of it. But just observing that there are some places where you will use a part of a connecting phrase or a part of a motive that is very very strong, and that tends to sort of stick out from the texture a little bit, right? So those are things that you're going to want to go through and edit to make sure that they're much smoother. Another critique that I would say is watch out for certain certain wrong notes that are here and there. I would just say, and the reason why I'm stressing this so much is a lot of times I just completely ignore the wrong notes. But in this case, I sense that you're probably going to want to have this performed if you possibly can. And if that is the case, then there are quite a few things that you need to fix. I'd say at least 6 or 7 bars in here where the there's either something missing or it's like the wrong note, or just like the there are some changes that are left out So I would just say go through there and just try to fix them as much as you can if you're going to get this performed. Okay, so now with the evaluation, let's get to it. Just such cool use of percussion is the first thing I'm going to say. The glockenspiel, wood blocks, snare drum, like with a rim shot right there. You know, it's all very, very cool. And you know, considering how, like, you know, we don't have a tuba, we don't have timpani. It's just really a fun score. When you're getting this ready, you know, to possibly show it to a conductor or something, you're gonna have to say 2 flutes, 2 oboes, you know, 2 clarinets, 2 bassoons, and so on. How many horns in F? You really, you know, are you really happy with just 2? Because there were some places in here where you could have filled out. You could have solved a lot of problems with 4 horns. All right, I'll see if I can remember to point some of those out. Okay, and you've got this, you know, this fun back and forth thing where you're basically, so if you can see what is happening here, is Stefano is achieving a slurred measured tremolo, right? So the each player is playing the pitch that the last player played, so you get this kind of humming, pulsing feeling rather than like da 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 on this row of seconds, right? So it's quite original way of dealing with that particular problem, and then same thing here, like with these thirds, right? So you just kind of get a humming, vibrating kind of a background, and instead of like accenting each beam group, we've got the accent supplied by dovetailing clarinets. So they're not truly dovetailing because like a true dovetailing would not have any emphasis on the note that was traded off, right? But we got the da-da, 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 and it does make for a smoother transition. And you've got something similar happening in the horns, bum, bum, bum. So forte, pianissimo, okay? So that is all very cool. And just touch of trumpet, followed by ba-da-dum, muted trumpet, and then piccolo, note high, and then bum 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 with trumpets, right? Muted trumpets and bassoons. It was just kind of a ripe sound, you know. It's sort of like a ripe in the way that cheese is ripe. Do you know what I mean? The slightly like pungent, kind of you know, sudden hitting you in the nose of your ear, right? Like stinky socks. But it's not to say it's a bad thing, but it just has that kind of really contoured kind of resonance. And you know, kind of the same thing again, just like muted trumpet trading off with flute and oboe, piccolo trading off to bassoon and muted trumpets. But I really love the way that they're adorned with glockenspiel and wood blocks. Right, that is such a cool idea. Trombone, I love that one single note right in there that starts to push at the and you know, by holding off on the sense of notes, single notes alternating, right? Instead you have this sort of humming, vibrating kind of accompaniment. Then when this finally comes in, it feels really fresh, right? It doesn't feel like it is necessarily just, oh yeah, more of the same, right? This, I'm just not sure that this is really going to work. This, yeah, right? You know, yeah, that's just too fiddly. Do you know what I mean? I know you're sort of trying to get this kind of overlapping kind of sound, but I just don't know how well this would really kind of work unless the player just worked and worked and worked and worked on it for just this one little second. Do you know what I mean? It's just a big ask, I think. I think you should just simplify this. Yeah. I'm just going to check something really quick here. Yeah, so we've got the timpani in there. I was forgetting. Yeah, so timpani in there and 4 horns. Right. I just wanted to check on that because I noticed the missing double bass part. Right. Okay. Well, that wasn't very nice thing to do to the layout. Okay. Yeah, generally speaking, like you have all the instruments on the first page, right? And I might have been the person to reduce some of those out. So if so, then apologies. So yeah, so just talking about the orchestration of this, adding flutes and ripping up with a piccolo, right? And so here is where you're broadcasting a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like you got these repeated figures. You're swooping up there with the strings. We kind of feel the absence of the strings there, and then like this da da da, right? It just really kind of pushes um, at the at the melody behind the alternation. So like maybe if you could simplify that a little bit, like maybe just like instead of having it as a triple octave, having it as like one of those instruments, and then adding more to the sense of alternating, right? So that it just creates more texture rather than just being like this really fat line. This is neat. Da, 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 pluck. I like that a lot. And then that with that little rim shot, that's very cool. Yeah, same thing again. And then here, like this flute line right here is is almost completely negligible, right? This would be better off as a clarinet line. And once again, it is really kind of broadcasting the that function, without much other texture involved, right? But I do like that da da da, like pluck, and like here the harp is not going to be very loud. I would recommend having it an octave higher and marked up to forte. Well, sorry, forte accented forte and just like higher, because otherwise this will just disappear into everything else, like the wood block, right? We'll just take care of the harp right there. Right, and then once again, just really heavy. You're really heavily underlining, like especially with A2 oboes. I think that was the thing that really kind of did it for me, or raised the objections for me was the horn. Excuse me, the A2 oboes here, the horn there. Those just really kind of pushing at that function, whereas we're getting less of the sort of bustling. So the bustling becomes almost like a secondary, right? And the sense of linear motion starts to dominate, right? And yeah, here's where Glock would actually kind of ring out more, right? So like have something rolled, right, and then a Glock strike at the top, right, and then this will come out. This idea of that punctuation will come out much stronger. I like this though. All right. Now I'm going to take issue with your use of niente hairpins. All right, so really save niente markings for instruments that just really like okay, so for film music, for extremely modernistic textural music where just really the focus is on balancing textures and bringing them in and out of nothing, right? And also reserve that for instruments that can actually really get down to absolutely nothing, like strings, low flute, clarinets, subtones on saxophones. Really, really save your niente hairpins. Like, don't just toss them around in a score, because the most horrible thing that could possibly happen would be that people in concert music get so used to them being just carelessly used that they just start to turn off and they don't respect them anymore when they are used correctly. Okay? So join me in this, everybody watching this. Stop using the anti-hairpins unless you are really doing something textural and you are really coming out of nothing where there is nothing there at all and people can hear you emerge from nothingness. As it is right here, you've got mezzo forte happening everywhere, right? You got these horns which are really going to push out of the texture here, right? Would be better to have them start at mezzo piano, going to mezzo piano to mezzo forte. Well, if they are backing up these others, right? So piano, I'd say piano to forte. Then, but even at that, like this is still so much tone weight. Nobody's hearing this poor little snare drum player just start off from pianissimo. just mark it pianissimo and spare this very, very specialized marking. Okay, if I can just really get people to understand that, right? Just do not use niente just as a way of starting, just starting from soft to loud, right? Just mark triple P. It makes more sense. Okay, and this is cool. I like this, the way that you start to bring in the same kind of idea for the winds, and I'm kind of not sure whether or not you intended like a similar effect here as was before, but maybe got the alternating notes wrong. But I don't think you did. I think you did that. So this comes out a little bit actually better than the strings did before, and this pacing right in here. And I really like this as a way of setting up the change over to A. Okay, that's really great to have those still muted trumpets. I'm imagining. I think that works really great alongside the flutes. So that's all good. Okay, and now we have some. We have, yeah. Now this really looks confusing at first, right? But Stefano is doing it correctly. He is marking harmonics and plucked notes, right? So these harmonics are intended to be plucked from below and then sound up the octave, right? So that would be the correct way according to the way that Sibelius works, which is actually wrong, right? Sibelius should have defaulted to where you have a note with a circle over it and it's written below the note that you intend, an octave below the note or the pitch that you intend to come out, right? That is what harpists prefer. Harpists would prefer if you wrote this like, this is what they want to see. They want to see where their fingers are going to be, right? And at this, we're starting to get kind of low, right? So getting the strings to speak in in harmonics, getting this low on the harp is really hard, right? And it just kind of becomes a little bit of a pointless exercise. Like F is the lowest possible note, and even that is like not ideal, okay? A is all right. But here's the next problem, Stefano, that you have to watch out for, and that is that when you do octaves like this, where you have a unison, then the one note tends to kill the other, right? The effect ends up being that the harmonic deadens the pitch above it, and then the pitch above it deadens the harmonic, right? So you do not get a very, I mean, yeah, it'll sound like something, but it won't. It'll just kind of almost be like a muted is the wrong way of putting it, like deadened note, right? So it really kind of has a deadened effect here, right? When, you could get a much better effect just with like pizzicato on a cello with those nice long strings, right? Okay, and this is really cool. This is the melody note right here, right? The unmuted viola, sounding 2 octaves higher than this root of the artificial harmonic, right? And then solo violin responding, right? And then senza sword, and then the violas respond. Okay, and then tutti with the with these harmonics. That's all very cool. Yeah, so it's really kind of like inverting what happened before with the winds taking the winds taking the patterning and the strings doing most of the melody in sort of parts, right? Trading off in parts. This is cool. Little touch of horn and trumpet, and stopped horn, A2, right here. And this all working together. That's all great. I do like these little reaction notes in here. Okay, and this is a really great place for piccolo to be doubling flute, right? Just like that, right in this register, that is the optimum place to get a more balanced sound. Okay, and then just responding here. All right, so now we've got the da 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 da. Okay, this is very nice. I like the kind of chorale approach here. It's showing you right here in Sibelius that that note is kind of low, right? But I mean, it's still doable. You could have easily sort of traded off for just a second, like flip these two notes, clarinet and oboe, just to be really sure. Because some players might honk down there, like say if you're working with a regional or semi-pro orchestra, right? And then just this little push right here from the trombone. This should be marked piano, right? And you don't have to be so like you don't have to do so much mixing, so much dynamic mixing here, right? I would say piano on the trombone, and then everybody else mezzo forte will be fine, and then just bring this out with accents, and then you've got a good balance. Okay, nicely scored harp. Now I noticed that these glissandos didn't seem to really agree with the key signature, and I'm wondering if you have got the harp glissando plugin, which looks like this. And you can basically just tune your harp glissandos to conform with whatever key signature you've got, and then it also creates a nice little pedal bracket for the harpist to follow, which they really do need at the beginnings of glissandos. Okay, and these are all really cool. These all these arpeggios in the clarinets. It's a really great place to put some of these, and and this too, trading off. Okay, yeah. So I just really have no problem with any of this. I mean, I think this is unnecessary. Really, I mean, you could have the whole line being pianissimo, and then just putting in the accent in there is going to give you the stronger dynamic. So it might be just a little fussy. Yeah, just like there's a lot of micro dynamic mixing in here, and I think that just like simplifying it the most so that the players just play more naturally is probably the best approach. But yeah, otherwise I don't really see anything that is too wrong here, except like why does the second oboe have to play this B natural? Right, this could have been done by the bassoons, right? They could have just popped this in there as just a little accented staccato and gone back to, yeah, it just would be easier for everybody right in there. Or clarinets could grab this, right? All right, and so now we're starting to build up, right? This is cool. Stopped horn, dampened cymbals, like you're just kind of holding onto the cymbal as you're hitting it with a stick. That all works great. And if there's one critique that I would have for this passage, and that is I feel that if you are headed to this this kind of bigger scoring right in here, where in some scores it's gotten a bit organ-like, not in yours, which is great. I think that it just really behooves you to start to build orchestrally towards that point and to have more of a cumulative texture, so that this payoff, right, it comes from somewhere instead of just going smack. All of a sudden we're there, right? And it's not because I'm trying to get you to not have any contrasts or any surprises in your scoring. It is because that by doing so you fulfill like the meaning of the line, right? The overall thematic line leading to this point, right? Without that, it is just very exposed, and like you've got piano dynamics before your big tutti, right? So it's yeah. I mean, I just feel it just needs to be a little bit more meat on the bones going towards this bar line right here. Okay, and now here, this whole thing could have been scored ottava, and rolls on all of these chords, or else they will not stand out at all. But they work really good with the glockenspiel on top. Yeah, and this is probably unnecessary. Just like, I mean, yeah. So unison, then half, and okay. I mean, I see that you're just trying to get really, really fine with your dynamics here. Um, but yeah, but look, you can just say pianissimo or triple P, right? And that will give you exactly like if there is a normal way of doing something, right? That gives you exactly the same meaning as this niente hairpin, then do the normal way, right? And that will ensure that there are, that's just like the happiest, most just most typically functioning response to what you're asking. Okay, so I would just say replace these niente hairpins, just forte at the beginning, pianissimo at the end, or even triple P, and you get exactly the same effect. But see here, the whole beauty of the niente, of the absolute beautiful, just getting down to nothing sound, is completely lost on the audience. As far as they're concerned, oh, it's just like the brass got softer in there, if they notice it at all, right? So it's an over, like, it's just, it's like, you know too much help. All right, it's giving them too many instructions. All right, that are probably not as needed. And I would say if you have got this much weight here, all this doubling in your clarinets and flutes, you don't need to go down to half here with your strings. Just keep them where they are, right? So like you're going unison, half, and then solo and everything else. But I mean, with all of these doublings, I'm not really seeing a justification for that exactly. I mean, it is kind of cool that you do have some kind of like solo lines along to these, flute and piccolo. Uh, yeah, still kind of thinking that over. But I do like the contours here dynamically. That's pretty cool. And then this one tiny little glockenspiel note right there. So yeah, so going on to a tempo at B. Yeah, so this was a place where I think that there were some wrong notes in the interpretation. It almost felt like the notes had been exported in these first two bars from like maybe a different part or a different like harmonization, and there's just like it just feels very thin right in here. The sense of harmony, the sense of interaction feels a bit just barely there, right? Barely orchestrated, and sometimes that is good. In this case, I think you need more texture here to make this passage work. Okay. Yeah, and then things get a little bit better as we go. Yeah, and then culminating with this, right? And then leading to the frolicking. All right, well, we'll talk about that in a second. But, this is going to be a pretty strong upper line. This is going to just have a big resonance. I'm not so sure if you need the piccolo just coming in the top there. But I do like the sense of playing around with things, and I do like the fact that you've separated some of these emphases. You know, yeah, but I just think that there needs to be more interaction between the different parts. Yeah, and I know like you sort of separated out the da do dee do dee do dee da, but there, it doesn't really flow the way that it could. Right, that would be my impression of that. Okay, and this is all very fun. Um, this yeah, yeah, this is all good right in here. I love these descending seconds, flutes, oboes, everything in its strengths as it supports what's going on here. Col legno basses, that's very very fun under pizzicato cellos. So that's a really neat experiment in timbres. I would say here, like with this timpani, maybe mezzo forte to piano, mezzo piano to pianissimo, right? Because the overall strength is dying down there. Okay, so you could spike up a little bit, but then go down even further in terms of dynamics. All right, and then we're building up do do dee boo doo dee ba da dim. Um, yeah, that's all good. First trumpet. Um, yeah, not. I'm not so sure if I'm convinced of places where you are building energy with your strings and then you suddenly trade off with the winds. I feel that like in terms of symphonic writing, you interrupt the arc of the melody, right? And there's this one other place where I feel that it is a much stronger problem. Here I think you can get away with it, like because of the oboes and so on. But later on, I think it hurts the contour of the melody way too much. If you can hear sort of rattling and scratching in the background, that is my that is my new cat who is anxious for some lunch, but I'm just having too much fun here. So he can just wait another 10 or 15 minutes. Right, and now here we've got really nicely, nicely scored. We've got that same kind of fluttering back and forth on alternating pitches, right? So that sort of vibrating across the same when it's slurred, right? And these bassoons kind of stomping in here, that is great. The col legno in here, that all works great. It's going to be fairly soft, but like you're kind of decreasing anyways in strength here. There could have been a little bit like just a little bit more texture in here, clarinets and first violins, right? Just kind of, it is a little empty in the middle. Yep, and this is all nice right in here. And then we've got our build, one more build up to the Borodin Waltz. Yeah, and then like, hold on, bum, da dee dum, bum bum. Yeah, like this. Yeah. Once again, I feel, it's the trading off is not it's not carrying through the line smoothly. Okay. And then boom, crashed, boom, crash, boom, crash. What's the trumpet doing? Right? This is where they really are needed, right? You've got a little bite right here at the end, but yeah, just there needs to be more strength in the middle, and the trumpets are just waiting to, maybe play these pitches down an octave, right? And the trombone scoring is very, tentative, right? In some of these big passages, could be a lot stronger. Cymbals and woodblock. This probably is not going to be that, heard that much. You're kind of going back and forth, and so so you're saying to go to use the left hand and the right hand and the left hand alternately. Okay, so I mean, you get a little bit of sound out of that, but like if this is really bashing along like it should be, it'll probably get buried for the most part. This almost really feels like one of those Hollywood rips, kind of feeling. Yeah, it just I mean, I feel that this could be a little bit more fully scored. Just have a little bit more meat on the bones right in this area. Okay, but I do like the measured tremolo, or the fingered tremolo. It's not measured. I like that right in here. That's really cool. I think like maybe take away the staccato marks, because it's already a short note because it doesn't carry over, right? Right now you're kind of going deep, 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 right? But what if it was just bum, 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 bum? You still get the sense of staccato and separation, because you got the rests in between each thing, and the players will be listening to alternate with each other. But like it sort of, I feel that it overemphasizes that separateness and makes it incredibly short, and kind of takes away the punch. And the same thing of like going down to mezzo forte here, right? What if it was just all forte and the strings were fortissimo right here? Okay. And then this, piccolo running down. Yeah, it all works. Pizzicato. We're going back to this kind of hovering feeling here. This time separated between winds and strings, the kind of vibrating feel. This is cool. It's probably not going to be heard unless it's an octave higher. Okay, so now into our final section here. I like the way that harp supports all this, right? And this should be mezzo piano to fortissimo, or forte. And, piano to mezzo forte. It just really has to be up a dynamic, one dynamic degree to be heard. Yeah, nice little touches here. Second trumpet, first trumpet. Yeah, it's going to be hard to really get like a very fine pianissimo up high like that. This is really kind of more of a like an oboe line, right? If you want this to be absolutely beautifully under control, I would say give this to the oboe players. You have room, right? That they could be going mezzo piano and that G, or or louder if you intend, and then ba bum bum, right? And they can easily do that. But I just feel that this is, I mean, you might be a great trumpet player and find that that's just really simple to play, but it might limit the amount of orchestras that can play this successfully. Okay, and this is cool. All that's good. And then, changing the tuning. To kind of the hovering is in the winds. Same strategy as before. So this could be done as a touch 4 on the open D string down here. That's how I would notate that. And then they can just play this open A and then jump up to the to the whatever position they would like to negotiate that with. And some more of that. Yep, I mean, it all works great. Now, here we're getting into some pretty ambitious string scoring. It might be better for the cellos to trade off right around here with the violas, right, and then trade back, right? That would probably work a whole lot better. And you can always just have the double basses just play this note, like get rid of this tie and just have the double basses hit this note again, right? I think that's just because like you're asking them to play this big rip, right? And then negotiate all this other stuff. And then you have the same thing here. And you could, once again, well, I mean, it's kind of tough. You want to throw this in here, right? I mean, the same thing could be true right here with your bassoon scoring. I would say better to trade off on this A and have the first player, like the second player from below, first player on the A, dovetail again, and then come back and then hit this, right? Then roll timpani. Okay. Okay, and I felt that this was unusually understated, right? It's just like it was already just going to be very, very, very soft, and that makes sense if you're doing col legno, because col legno is such a soft effect, right? It's not really even going to be felt until right about here when everything else tones down in the brass and the winds. Yeah. Yeah, and then this little push right in here is, yeah, I mean, like here's where the strength is really in this passage, and it still is, it just still is very, very subtle and so on. Right? And just, yeah, once again, there's really no difference between this and this, right? Just put a triple P on the end here. My rule about niente is if the audience cannot detect the niente as a unique effect in its own right, then don't use it, right? Because this, like, diminuendo to triple P is the same exact effect, and the players just get it, and they don't have to worry about like being really, really inaudible when the effect is kind of lost on the audience, right? Okay, and then yeah, we have the alternating of those pitches, kind of hovering feeling right in there. It's so cool. Yeah, and I don't really have any problems with any of the rest of this. The first oboe, I'd say here. Okay, yeah, atu. Here's something that we could talk about. So, atu in oboes gives a very hard edge that is more expressionless, right? Is less contoured and nuanced, right? So it's like you're thinking, oh, I'll have it nice and extra warm and extra strong, but actually you get a colder, if brighter sound when you go atu, right? So it's cold, it's bright, it's almost trumpet-like, right? And if you want that, then just add trumpet, or just keep it like, or change instruments to clarinet, or do some other kind of thing. But the atu thing is not going to improve the quality of tone there. It's going to decrease it, right? It's going to sort of degrade it a little. Okay. And just a touch of, I love this triple P trumpet. But when you get up to here, that is, that might as well be like maybe second oboe or something, or I mean, that could be clarinet. Actually, that could be perfect as clarinet. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of an ask, I think. And then, so these are like, here are situations where, I mean, it still is something I wouldn't score with these Niente hairpins, but it's still, there's more of a chance of the audience noticing that the player actually honestly died into nothing, right? But it still is like, you put a triple P at the end there, you'll get the same effect, or a quadruple P, or just like, it's already so soft that if you put a hairpin on here ending this, you are going to get that effect anyway, right? So you don't even need to mention that you want to go down to Niente. And in this case, you have players who are playing beautiful. They are shaping their notes so beautifully for you, and they will have ways of wrapping up the way that this note ends in such a beautiful and subtle way that, like, kind of telling them to do this is like kind of like telling a chef to bake a hamburger, right? So it's just the same thing. It's just like that you got to let them finish things in their own way. Okay, and this is all really nice right in here. I like these little harp things. So here, I think that there are a couple of wrong notes in here. Yeah, so da 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 da. Right, so it should be written G and then F instead of F E flat. So I think that you might have, you were sort of tinkering around in there, and you might have like made the wrong pitches go down. Okay. And then this is all great. I like these little touches of col legno, pizzicato, and everything else. That's really, really great, And that little piccolo stuff right at the end. Very cool. So what a great score, Stefano, and what a great way to finish this up, and to for me to end on a really high note, literally. And I just really felt good about this year's challenge. It ended up coinciding with me trying to wrap up my audiation course, which put me under a huge amount of pressure in this last week. And I will, hopefully, with the rest of this day, be able to finish up that last audiation video and release it. But once again, I just want to state my appreciation, my thanks to everybody, to you, Stefano, for entering your score and for supporting on Patreon. And, everybody for, all through the years, being part of these challenges and supporting the channel, and being, really cool in our community, being really constructive in terms of feedback and everything else. So just want to say thank you to everybody. I want to give special kudos to people who have watched every single evaluation, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, in the website evaluations, and then all 25 of these individual Patreon releases. So I just, that would stun me too, like, that accomplishment of really looking through that and learning from it, if it's educational. And I hope that everybody, has taken something away from this and has new ideas, has fresh ideas about how to orchestrate certain passages, or some useful tips on score layout or notation or instrumentation, or texture and all the different elements that one needs to be a crafty, competent orchestrator. And for me, it was just great looking through all of these different ways of interpreting the same material. Yeah, just kind of showing me that my idea of what is perfect isn't everybody else's idea of what's perfect, and gives me ideas too of different things that I could do in future orchestrations. So my gratitude to you all, and it's just wonderful coming together, this whole thing, and I'd like to keep this annual and continue to offer challenges throughout the years and see where everybody goes and how everybody develops as an orchestrator. Thanks to you all once again.